You've just spent another sleepless night replaying that moment when fear took over, when your heart pounded and your mind went blank, when you needed courage most but felt completely powerless. What if I told you there's a fictional character who discovered the secret to transforming that exact feeling into unbreakable strength? Welcome to the Modern Sages, Ancient Wisdom, Modern Application. Today, how Batman's approach to fear mirrors 2,000-year-old Stoic philosophy, what cutting-edge research reveals about emotional courage, and your 2-minute practice to turn anxiety into your ally tonight. Here's what most people get wrong about Batman and about courage itself. We think strength means feeling no fear. We believe heroes are the people who never shake, never doubt, never feel their pulse quicken when everything's on the line. But Bruce Wayne's origin story tells us something completely different. In Detective Comics number 33, published in 1939, we see the moment that would define Batman forever. A young Bruce sits in his study, tortured by memories of his parents' murder, paralyzed by the very fear that criminals would soon learn to dread. Then a bat crashes through his window. Most people would see this as a bad omen. Bruce Wayne saw it as a gift. Criminals are a superstitious, cowardly lot, he writes in his journal. So my disguise must be able to strike terror into their hearts. I must be a creature of the night, black, terrible. He doesn't overcome his fear of bats. He becomes it. And here's the thing that would make ancient philosophers nod in recognition. Bruce Wayne had accidentally stumbled onto a principle that Stoic thinkers had been teaching for over 2,000 years. Quick question for the regulars. Are you Team Batman or Team Superman? Drop your choice and why in the comments below. Let's travel back to ancient Greece, around 300 BCE. A merchant named Zeno of Citium has just lost everything. His entire fortune, his ship, his cargo, in a shipwreck near Athens. Standing on that beach with nothing left, most people would be consumed by despair. Instead, Zeno walks into Athens and begins studying philosophy. He would go on to found Stoicism, one of history's most practical schools of thought, and at its core was a radical idea. Emotions aren't the enemy. How you respond to emotions determines everything. The Stoics taught that fear, anger, grief, these are natural human experiences. The weakness isn't in feeling them. The weakness is in letting them hijack your judgment. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor who ruled from 161 to 180 CE, faced constant warfare, devastating plagues, and political betrayal. In his private journal, what we now call Meditations, he wrote something that sounds remarkably like Bruce Wayne's approach. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. But here's where it gets interesting. Aurelius didn't write those words from the comfort of a palace. He wrote them in military camps, surrounded by dying soldiers, with Germanic tribes threatening to destroy everything he'd worked to protect. He was afraid, and he used that fear as fuel. His contemporary, a former slave named Epictetus, put it even more directly. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views they take of them. Epictetus had spent years in chains, had endured torture, had every reason to be bitter and afraid. Instead, he became one of history's most influential teachers precisely because he learned to transform suffering into wisdom. Sound familiar? Batman does the exact same thing. When Jason Todd, the second Robin, is brutally murdered by the Joker in 1988's A Death in the Family, Batman doesn't suppress his rage. He doesn't pretend it doesn't hurt. Instead, he channels that fury into an even more disciplined approach to protecting Gotham. The anger becomes fuel for justice, not destruction. The Stoics had a name for this. They called emotions first impressions, natural reactions that everyone experiences. What separates the wise from the foolish isn't the absence of these feelings, but what you do in the seconds after you feel them. Seneca, advisor to emperors and one of Stoicism's greatest writers, practiced something called premeditatio malorum, deliberately imagining potential disasters to prepare mentally for them. Batman calls them contingency plans. Both approaches serve the same purpose. When the worst actually happens, you're not paralyzed by shock. You're ready. But then everything changed when researchers decided to test this ancient wisdom in the most modern way possible. In 2016, Dr. Stephanie Carlson at the University of Minnesota ran a fascinating experiment. She gave 139 children between ages 4 and 6 a deliberately frustrating task: a toy box that couldn't be opened, puzzles with missing pieces, games designed to trigger disappointment. One group of kids tackled these challenges as themselves. Another group was told to imagine they were Batman. The results were stunning. The children pretending to be Batman persisted 20 to 30% longer on difficult tasks. They showed better emotional regulation, more resilience when things went wrong, and, here's the key part, the effect was strongest in children who normally struggled with emotional control. The researchers called it the Batman effect, but what they'd actually discovered was something Stoics had known for 2,000 years. Psychological distance transforms emotional experience. When you step outside yourself, whether by imagining you're Batman or by practicing Stoic reflection, fear becomes information instead of paralysis. Here's what the study really revealed. It's not about becoming fearless. It's about becoming fearless. Less controlled by fear, more empowered by it. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this exact principle during the Marcomannic Wars. Surrounded by death and uncertainty, he practiced a mental exercise. Imagine yourself from above, as if you're watching your own life unfold. From that perspective, even overwhelming emotions become manageable data points in a larger story. Batman does this constantly. In the heat of battle, facing impossible odds, he shifts into what fans call detective mode, emotionally present but not emotionally reactive. Fear sharpens his focus instead of clouding it. Anger fuels his determination without burning him out. The Stoics taught that every emotion carries information. Fear tells you something matters. Anger tells you something seems wrong. Grief tells you something valuable has been lost. The key is learning to receive that information without being overwhelmed by it. And here's what's fascinating. Modern neuroscience researcher Dr. Amy Arnsten discovered the exact same principle 2,000 years later. Her work on the prefrontal cortex shows that moderate stress actually enhances cognitive performance, while extreme stress shuts it down. The goal isn't to eliminate stress. It's to keep it in the optimal range where it sharpens rather than sabotages your thinking. This isn't just ancient philosophy. It's backed by cutting-edge brain science. Now for the 2-minute practice. The next time you feel afraid, whether it's before a difficult conversation, a job interview, or any moment when your heart starts racing, try the Batman protocol. First, pause and name what you're feeling. I notice I'm afraid. Don't judge it. Don't try to change it. Just acknowledge it. Second, ask yourself, what information is this fear giving me? Maybe it's telling you this moment matters to you. Maybe it's highlighting something you need to prepare for. Third, and this is the Batman part, imagine you're advising someone else in your exact situation. What would you tell them? That psychological distance will transform overwhelming emotion into useful strategy. Try it right now with something you've been avoiding. Pause the video if you need to. Here's the principle in one line. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's fear transformed into fuel. Here's what to try. The next time anxiety hits, use the Batman protocol to turn emotional reaction into strategic information. Now I'm curious, what scares you more? Taking action when you're afraid or staying stuck because of fear? Drop your answer like this. My challenge. One fear I'll face this week. If you want more ancient wisdom with modern application, subscribe. We post daily.